This is rental car number 123. Today I'm driving one of my personal favorites. This is the 2019 Chrysler Pacifica Touring L. This is a minivan that seats 8 and retails for around $36,000. A couple of things we got to talk about real quick. First off, no DVD player standard on this minivan, something that people ask all the time. You can get it for an extra $1,000, but for that price I'd probably just buy my kids a tablet or two. Also, no major changes since 2018, but this thing still has one of my favorite features, which is both the second and third row seats can collapse down into the floor and completely disappear. I gotta say, it's just a phenomenal feature to have on a minivan, and we'll go over that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. Let's start out though by popping the hood and taking a look underneath and talking about some numbers real quick, and I promise to be brief, but I think it's worth mentioning that this thing has a 3.6 liter V6 engine. It's a 24 valve VVT. Your transmission is a 9-speed front wheel drive automatic, and that thing kicks out 287 horsepower, which it's not too shabby for a minivan. Your gas mileage is also pretty good. 19 miles per gallon in the city and 28 on the highway, and I think it's worth noting that that is the exact same rating as the 2019 Honda Odyssey. So rest assured you're getting some pretty good gas mileage on this thing. It's also worth noting that you get a 19-gallon fuel tank. Gas by me is around $2.49 right now, give or take a little bit. So that means you can fill this thing up for about $47. Alright, but what do all those numbers mean in the real world? So let's start off by talking about handling. And I gotta say, I was pretty impressed with the Pacifica. It's really comfortable, super stable, and the ride is just smooth, so you don't feel all those bumps in the road when you're driving around. I also felt, for some strange reason, really confident driving this vehicle. It's really tight around corners, and it makes parking, really simple, actually. I even parallel parked this thing, which usually I avoid with a larger vehicle because it's a rental and, well, I don't want to pay for the damage. So there's no issues with handling, and there's also, at least for me, no issues with acceleration. Now remember, this is a minivan, so you're not going to be the fastest thing out there, but by minivan standards, this thing is pretty quick. It's also really responsive, so when you do hit that accelerator pedal pretty hard, you're going to get almost an instant bit of speed, which is, well, it's always fun to have. Last thing I want to touch on also is cabin noise. As you can hear, there's a little bit of cabin noise, but it's actually pretty good. I'm a big listener of audiobooks and podcasts, so I need to be able to hear pretty well while I'm driving these things, and I had no issues at all with the Pacifica. I don't even think I had to turn the volume up that much when I was on the interstate, which is a great thing in my book. So here's the key fob. 7 buttons on this one. Lock and unlock. You have the trunk release and a remote start feature, and then you have buttons to automatically, or I should say remotely, open up both side doors, and then also a panic button on the bottom. On the back, you just get a nice Chrysler logo. No physical keys, so we have a push button start. It's located next to the steering wheel, a little bit further down on the dash than normal, but let's start the car up. Steering wheel setup is, a little simpler than the steering wheels I've had lately. The controls right here help you adjust things in the digital display and the gauge cluster up there. You have phone buttons to answer and hang up on phone calls, and then a button in the center to access the voice assistant feature. On the right hand side we have cruise controls. There are buttons for additional features, but we don't have them on this vehicle. Wrapped around back, there are buttons right here on the right hand side to adjust the volume of the entertainment feature, and then on the other side, all the way on the other side, there are buttons to adjust the track of the song you're listening to. Up top we have what I think is a pretty beautiful gauge cluster. I really like the accents in blue. I think it's pretty striking. But 2 gauges, RPMs on the left, speedometer on the right. Pretty big display in the center. You have your temperature gauge here on the left-hand side, and then a fuel gauge. A little bit different than most of the vehicles I drive. I don't know if I'm a fan of this style of fuel gauge. It kind of has these little teeth that light up as you fill up the gas tank, but hey, whatever, it works fine. Digital screen in the center has a compass in the upper right-hand corner. It tells you what temperature it is outside in the upper left-hand corner. And then that P up top shows you which gear you're in. Let me shift the gears real quick. So you see reverse, neutral, drive. Plenty of screens in the center to play around with. I'm not super familiar with this, but let's kind of cycle through a couple together. So, setup screen, messages, which I never use. Audio, so you can see what's playing over the entertainment features. You can see if that start-stop feature is engaged or not. I'll show you that in a second. Trip counter, fuel economy, and vehicle info. So I thought this was kind of interesting. It's engine hours, so the total time the vehicle has been used, right? So it's actually sat idle for 7.3 hours. That's a long time. And then 31.7 total hours of engine time. I don't know. Is that useful? Maybe, maybe not, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And if you'll notice, the odometer at the bottom shows this car is pretty new. It only has about 1,200 miles on it, and 200 of those are mine. Down to the left, we have the lock and unlock button right here, window controls, and then the mirror controls right here. You get a door lock and a door latch in kind of a nice dull silver color. Up on the dash we have a dial to adjust the headlights. Honestly, I just keep it on auto, so it'll turn the headlights on and off for me whenever it's needed. Fog lamps at the center. The dial's right here. This adjusts the brightness of the display up here. It's hard to see because it's daylight hours, but one thing I want to mention is that when you shift it all the way up, the lights on the interior of the vehicle come on and off. I don't know, small feature, but it's nice to have something that easily accessible to turn all the lights on in the car, especially if you have kids in the back. I mentioned the controls to adjust the side view mirrors. Those are right here. Kind of a sleek shape. I think they're kind of striking. Anyway, you do get blindside detection on this vehicle. Let me open the window really quick. You'll see there's a small triangle right here. That will illuminate if someone is in your blind spot, just to let you know that you need to be careful. And that feature is also available on the passenger side view mirror. So up top on the sun visor, you have your garage door programmable buttons right there, built into the sun visor itself. So up top we have a sunglass holder, also a mirror that can fold down from the ceiling to allow you to see what's going on in the rear of the vehicle. It looks a little weird right now because no one has peeled off the plastic on the mirror yet, so I get to be the first one to do that. Also up top we have two lights and then buttons to control both the rear door and the side doors, and then a button right in the center that'll allow you to turn those automatic doors off so that little ones can't press the button and open the doors while you're stopped, maybe waiting for them to get in or out for school. So below there we have the rear view mirror. No buttons on it really, except for one single power button to turn on and off the automatic dimmer feature. Down below there is the display. This is a large touchscreen with dedicated menu buttons all the way down on the bottom, so you can switch between the radio, whatever's playing on your cell phone, your climate controls. There's a bunch of apps on this vehicle. Controls for the seats, so you can do a heated seat or a heated steering wheel. Both of those were fantastic today because if you'll notice, it's 38 degrees outside. It got pretty cold pretty fast. A screen for your phone to see how the connection is going and to make phone calls, and then a settings screen. I was pretty impressed with this. I was able to connect my cell phone via Bluetooth with only maybe 10 to 20 seconds. It's pretty shallow as far as being buried in the menu structures. You just scroll down in the settings screen, hit the Bluetooth button, and then you're able to pair your phone really quickly. Also, media tab worked great. I don't know if you can tell, but when you actually hit the screen, let's see. You see how there's kind of a little bit of feedback? A little bit of a blue circle that suddenly pops over each icon? It's a small thing, but I like design choices like that. Climate controls also work great. You do have controls down here to adjust the fan and the temperature and your defroster settings, but most of the climate controls you're going to interact with are up in here. So let me turn on the system, and then you'll see you can control where the vents are blowing. You can control the temperature right here, control the fan by simply pressing it or by adjusting the fan knob down here, and then you can switch so you can also control the climate in the back of the vehicle as well. This was great. I was able to get the car to a comfortable temperature actually really quickly. And as I said before, those heated seats and the heated steering wheel, man, those things are wonderful. And should note that your passenger also gets a heated seat as well. I've kind of already looked at this down below, but you get controls to turn on and off the park assist technology. This A button right here is just a on-off feature. So when you bring the vehicle to a stop, if this setting is engaged, it's going to turn the engine off while you're stopped at a stoplight to save just a little bit of fuel, and then it'll turn it automatically back on when either the car needs some additional power to do something else with the vehicle, or if you need to move forward. No problems with this at all. I kept it on the entire time, and honestly I barely noticed it. A mute button and a screen off button along with your hazard button and traction control buttons right there. Volume knob and a tuner knob right here to adjust the entertainment features. Over to the left, we also have a knob for the gear shift. So you just turn this to shift through the gears. When I first used something like this, I honestly didn't like it very much, but now that I've used cars like this and this minivan for a couple of days, I gotta say, it's pretty convenient. I would prefer a physical gear shift, but it's just so easy to cycle through the controls, or through the gears I should say, when you need them. So you'll have to decide whether or not that's a make or break detail for you. And then down below there we have the electronic parking brake. Just push it to engage the parking brake, and then push it again to disengage the parking brake. It's also worth noting that when the parking brake is engaged, when you shift the car into drive, it'll automatically disengage that parking brake for you. And then when you shift the car into reverse, you do get a rear view camera with a nice wide view and great screen quality. The resolution's just beautiful. You can see things really clearly. And then on the small screen in the gauge cluster, there's also the rear parking assistant. So you see this gray bar at the bottom, kind of looks like almost like a t-shirt. Those will illuminate in white as you get closer and closer to an object, and the car will also beep at you, first slowly when you're pretty far away from the vehicle, but then it'll get more and more persistent as you get closer and closer to hitting something. Below there we have some storage cutouts. I'll show you kind of what they look like if I put my cell phone in there. So I have a pretty large phone, and it almost goes entirely back there. You also have a USB control and an auxiliary jack right there. A second cutout down here. This one seems to be a little bit deeper. You'll see my cell phone goes a little bit further in. If I were to turn it sideways, it could fit all the way in there. And then at the very bottom, there's a large drawer that pulls out. It's got a lot of storage area right here, and then some change cutouts down here if you need to keep change in the vehicle. And then again, all the way down below at the very, very bottom, this is kind of a rubbery material. It's nice because it's removable, so you could just take this out and throw it into the dishwasher if it gets gross. And at the bottom we have a power port, and then another USB port right there. It's kind of hard to reach, but I don't know, if you got to charge something up, it's a good place to keep things while you're driving while they charge. A little bit further up, we have two cup holders. I'm drinking hot tea right now because it's freezing outside. And this is the garbage that I pulled off that mirror. Then kind of a storage space right here. It's a little bit shallow, but perfect to keep your cell phone or maybe some other odds and ends. And I don't know if I can do it one-handed, but this is a kind of a rubbery material, and again, it comes out so you can throw it in the dishwasher or take it somewhere to clean it, which is a huge, huge plus for a minivan like this. And then wrapped behind the back of this, there are two additional cup holders right there for you. And last but not least, over on the passenger side, of course you get a glove box. Not that big, right? But it's enough to keep your owner's manual and your registration materials. All right, I jumped in the back seat. I pushed these driver's seats back pretty far, and even with that, I still had plenty of legroom back here, probably 3 or 4 inches between my knees and the back of that seat. Speaking of the back of that seat, you do get some cargo netting right here to store some things. That's available both on the driver's seat and on the passenger seat, and this feels like it's made out of, you know, pretty good materials. I would note that the back of these seats they're plastic, and you can see, even though this car is pretty much brand new, it's already kind of getting scuffed up a little bit. Plastic's a good and a bad thing, right? You're gonna get scuffs like this, but it's also easy to clean. So I guess that's a good thing. Not a whole lot of other controls back here. You do get window controls and a door lock. You also get screens that can just pull up from the base of the window to block some of the sun. And those screens are available on all 4 windows back here. So this is the window behind the driver's seat. You get a screen over here, same screen, passenger side, and then smaller screens in the 3rd row seat as well. Now up top, directly above each seat, you do get an individual vent and a light. You'll see that is also over on the 2nd captain's chair in the middle row. And then on this side of the vehicle, you'll notice that the rear seat passengers get their own climate controls. The nice big digital readout right here, you know, fan controls, auto, temperature, and then you can even adjust where the vents are blowing. That's pretty phenomenal. And then also tucked down, I kind of missed this, I don't want to skip it. In the door itself, there is a cup holder down here. I showed you this before, but the other cup holders are back here. And honestly, that's pretty far away. So I'm guessing those are probably going to be used by the front seat passengers. So the middle row seats are a nice size, all in leather, with 2 armrests that are retractable, so you can use them or not use them. And the car seat anchors are really shallow. You see there's the car seat anchor icon, and then you can see the car seat anchor itself without even manipulating the seats. So both of them are really accessible if you want to install a car seat right here. And then to open the doors back here, you really have 2 options. Got a large handle right here. If you just manipulate it a little bit, the door will open all by itself. Or you can press this button right here to open or close the door automatically. And you don't have to worry about these doors and your kids, because even if it closes on somebody, it just gives you kind of a gentle pinch, and then the door automatically retracts back open. I gotta be honest, I did this a couple of times, and look, don't worry about this at all, because it doesn't even hurt a little bit. As soon as that door senses you, it pops right back open. All right, so I jumped in the 3rd row. I'm 6 feet tall, mostly legs, if I'm gonna be honest, and I'm pretty impressed. Even with my long legs, I still have leg room back here. Probably, what do you think that is, 4 or 5 inches between my knees and the back of that middle row seat? That's pretty impressive. So even adults can probably sit back here pretty comfortably. Also back here, I mentioned this, but I want to show you anyway. You do get these sunscreens that pull up, pretty nice. And each passenger back here also gets a cup holder, and then there's this other kind of handle-like cutout right here. Also, on the ceiling, each of the passengers in the 3rd row also gets their own vent right up here on the ceiling, and their own light as well. So in the 3rd row, let's talk car seat anchors. You can see the icon right here to tell us that the car seat anchor should be directly underneath, and it's not buried too bad. Just by pushing down kind of lightly on the seat, you can see I can reveal the car seat anchor, and that means it probably won't be too hard to install a car seat back here. The ones in the center are also just as shallow, so hopefully you should be able to get both car seat anchors set pretty quickly. So this is the seat belt for the middle passenger in the 3rd row. Pretty common seat belt, right? Nothing special here. Connects just like it should. What I want to show you really quick though is how this is stowed away, because quite honestly, you probably aren't going to have a 3rd row middle passenger that often. So to disengage, you see this little red right here on the side? You're going to take a key, see if I can do this one-handed, and you're going to push it into this red area. That disengages the seat belt. You see it already pulled itself all the way up into the ceiling. And then this is pretty nice because you can stow away the seat belt almost entirely into the ceiling. So you take this smaller latch and it sticks right in here. And then well, let's see if I can show you. This is actually pretty hard holding a camera. But the larger latch slides into the ceiling. The smaller latch slides into a different hole right there. And then you'll see the seatbelt is still accessible, but nicely stowed away so it won't get in your way. All right, so let's close things out by taking a look at the back and talking about storage space, because that's where I think this thing really, really shines. First off, what you're looking at right now is with that third row seat up, so someone can actually sit in it. And even in that setup, you still have quite a bit of storage space back here, so you can easily get a stroller, groceries, suitcases back here without any problems. There's also a power port back here, which is worth mentioning because you can plug in some electronic devices back here if you want to. But where it gets fun is when you fold this third row seat down, and it's actually very easy. You just pull on these two little cords you see right here, and the seats fold down really easily. No effort at all. You don't have to muscle this thing at all. It just sort of collapses very simply into the floor. And then you're left with a lot more space back here to haul around some larger items. My minivan does this, so it's really easy to throw my kids' bikes back here, or maybe, when I'm picking up a larger toy from a toy store, no issues, because I got plenty of space back here. And then, if you want to go super crazy, you can collapse those second row seats into the floor as well. Collapsing these second row seats is a little bit more work, but it's also not very hard. It just takes a couple of steps. So the first step is to press this button right here. That'll push the driver's seat automatically forward and make enough room for you to collapse these seats. Then you have to reach down into the floor and pull away the floor section to reveal the space where the seat is going to collapse into, and that's also fairly easy. And then all you have to do is pull on this little cord right here, and the seat will collapse itself, although it does take a little bit of muscle to force it, kind of push it down into the space in the floor that it's going to rest. And then the last step you have to do is simply fold the floor back down, and it'll cover up the seat and reveal a lot more storage space. So this is great because it gives you a lot of options, and I think versatility on a family vehicle is ideal. So for example, you can fold down one of the two center row seats, or you can fold them both down and keep that third row seat up. That's what we do on road trips. We collapse the center row seats, stick the kids in the back, and put all our stuff in the middle. But you can figure out what works best for you. What's important is that you have options, and if you need it, you have a ton of storage space back here if you're willing to fold down all 5 of the back seats. All right, so that's pretty much everything end to end on the 2019 Chrysler Pacifica Touring L. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this vehicle. I just love those collapsing seats. You get great technology, and it's pretty fun to drive. So you're not going to be shocked that I'm going to give this one 5 stars. Look, this is a wonderful minivan, although I think it's worth mentioning again that you are going to have to pay probably $35,000 or $36,000 for this thing, so you are paying for all those great features. But if you got the money, I think it's worth it. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you join me next time when I rent and review my 124th rental car. So I hope you'll subscribe and join me then.